So now I've got the Y-axis to install, and this is the last major assembly to install into the machine. So we're going to be locking this in with two M3x6 flathead socket screws and two M3x6 grub screws. Now you will have countersunk on one end a couple of holes. That corner is for the motor end of your assembly. Before I go and slot that in, I'm just going to put some tape over the screw holes on the other end, the non-motor end. And I've just got a double skin of Kapton tape here. Now the grub screws I actually don't want to lock into those holes. I want to push this assembly into compression just to tighten it against the other end, because there is a little bit of tolerance in the system, and I just want to make sure that I'm not pulling the machine together too much and bowing it out of shape. So I'm just going to put two layers of tape over there. Just means that the screw won't go into that hole, but it will actually just lock it into place so it won't slip out. I'm going to slide that under there. Now the thing that we have to do now is, before we go and lock it into place, we've got to put your limit switch plug into place. I'll zoom right back in there again, and we're looking at this in one of the previous videos. You can just see the two pins directly next to that other yellow plug in there for your X-axis. So I'll just pop those in so it looks just like. Zoom back out, and then we've got to do the same again for the motor header plug, and that goes onto these 4 pins here. So with the red wire facing towards the power inlet again. So you can see we can get access to the wiring for the Y-axis between the split in the two top panels. It just means we don't have to disassemble the machine completely if we need to do any work on this, on the axis itself. So I'm just going to push those wires down inside there, and this will self-locate down onto the brackets that we put in earlier. So now I'm going to fix the axis in place, and on the end with the countersunk holes, I'm going to take these two M3x6 flathead machine screws, and just screw fix that in place. And that should be dead level. I'm just going to put the grub screws in this other end. Now they're not actually going to screw into anything. They're just going to hold the assembly in compression, so it just fixes it in place or squishes it into place. And you push them both in until the two little corners align. Now, there's one thing that starts to happen here is the panels start to separate from each other. Now we're just going to fix that by putting some Kapton tape across the join. You could use any other tape, but I find that Kapton tape has got a quite nice tensile strength. So I'll just cut a little slither of that and put that across that corner like this. And then really push the two panels together and squish that across. Now if it interferes with that screw, you'll have to trim a little bit off there. Which I'll just do with the scissors. Like that, and push that back into place. So there, that should hold now when we do that, when we screw these two little grub screws in. Just make sure that's seated nicely home and that the two corners are aligned in there. So while we're doing those corners, we may as well do these top two as well. Actually, before we do that, I'm just going to release this again, because you'll notice when you do this that these top two really tighten up on your x-axis. So we'll get that loose again, and now you'll notice that wobble back in there. So to hold these Z rails in place, we just need a couple of little nylon grub screws to stop that wobble. There's a little bit of a gap there. Now we'll put those grub screws in before finally tightening up these two grub screws here on the y-axis, and we'll just get them all in place first and then gently tighten them all up. Now these nylon grub screws hold the z-axis in place, but the nylon still allows it to slip up and down. So I'm just going to pop 4 of those in. Now if you're finding that that the nylon grub screws don't go in very easily, don't force them. If they're forced in and they get stuck, they don't come back out again. So you'll need to drill them out. So I'll pop these nylon grub screws in place. And if the nylon grub screws do get stuck in there, we'll just gently ease them in. If they feel like they're getting stuck, stop, and you'll have to re-tap those holes. So once you've done that, you just need to make sure that the apex of your aluminium part is sitting perfectly in the apex of the plastic part. This one's not. This grub screw here is in too far, so I've just got to loosen that a little bit and then tighten this one. Now in doing that, you'll notice there's absolutely no wobble on that anymore. It's nice and tight, which is great. And now we can finally just tune this bottom y-axis, fixing that in place. And that's it. Everything is nice and stable.